Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Aaron.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. Post-election politics in Washington have the president and the presumptive Senate Majority Leader pledging to work together. At stake, the president's legacy and both parties' political fortunes in 2016. But as Heather Sells reports, many in Washington are not optimistic about what the two can accomplish.
The day after an election tidal wave that gave Republicans decisive control of the Senate and extended their majority in the House, the president gave grudging acknowledgement.
Obviously, Republicans had a good night, and they deserve credit for running good campaigns.
Of course, it was more than just a good night. The GOP picked up at least 7 seats in the Senate and made historic gains in the House, adding at least 10 new seats there. But in extended remarks on Wednesday, the president seemed unmoved and blamed poor voter turnout for the Republican sweep.
To everyone who voted, I want you to know that I hear you. To the 2/3 of voters who chose not to participate in the process yesterday, I hear you too.
The president and the man poised to take control of the Senate have only met one-on-one twice over the past 6 years. Senator Mitch McConnell struck a conciliatory tone on Wednesday, saying he's happy to try and work with Obama.
We ought to start with the view that maybe there are some things we can agree on to make progress.
But the new Senate leader also warned the president not to go it alone, especially on hot-button topics.
I think the president choosing to do a lot of things unilaterally on immigration would be a big mistake. It's like waving a red flag in front of a bull.
McConnell and House Speaker John Boehner have already begun to lay out a GOP agenda designed to impress voters in 2016. It includes construction of the Keystone XL oil pipeline, passing a budget through both chambers for the first time since 2009, and sweeping tax reform. Heather Sells, CBN News.
A West Virginia University freshman is now our nation's youngest lawmaker. CBN News first told you about Sarah Blair back in August when she was campaigning out of her dorm room. The fiscally conservative 18-year-old was elected to the House of Delegates on Tuesday. She'll represent a small district in West Virginia's eastern panhandle. Blair defeated her 44-year-old Democratic opponent 63% to 30%. A third candidate got 7% of the vote. Blair used her age as a campaigning tool, saying the voice of young voters should be heard in the state capitol. And you can see our story of her campaign on cbnnews.com.
The U.S. elections are sparking new hopes and fears about the Obama administration's Mideast policy. U.S.-Israel relations have reached a new low under the Obama administration. But some believe the new Senate will take steps to hold the White House accountable for the way it treats our top Middle East ally and for the way the U.S. has funded regimes that support terrorism. Still, concerns are mounting. President Obama will also try to rush a deal with Iran before the new Senate takes power.
I'm concerned that they're going to try and ramrod these negotiations through before a new Senate and Congress is allowed to take power next January. I think that it's high on the Obama administration's list to reach an agreement with Iran, and more importantly, to prevent Israel from doing anything to stop it. That sounds just unbelievable, but that would be the central foreign policy of the administration, but that seems to be exactly what it is.
For several weeks, violent riots and terror attacks have rocketed eastern Jerusalem. Palestinians accuse Israel of endangering the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but what's really behind it? CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has that story.
It happened again on Wednesday. A Palestinian terrorist used a vehicle as a weapon to plow into Israelis, killing 1 and wounding 13 others. The attack took place at this intersection not too far from Jerusalem's Old City. It's the second attack of this kind in just the past 2 weeks, and many are wondering if this is the new weapon of choice for Palestinian terrorists. Later, another terrorist rammed into 3 soldiers at a bus stop outside Jerusalem. Earlier in the day, Palestinians rioted on the Temple Mount. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said they're separate issues.
There are tensions in Jerusalem, but our aim is to do everything possible to both deal with these types of incidents and, of course, stay one step ahead and prevent those incidents from taking place.
But Hamas itself made the connection. Shortly after the first attack, the terror group said it was intended to defend Al-Aqsa, the mosque on the Temple Mount. There are a growing number of Jews that want to pray on the Mount, where only Muslims are allowed to pray. The Israeli government says it won't allow that to happen. But Israel says Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is inciting violence by telling Palestinians that the Al-Aqsa Mosque is in danger.
We've seen that on the ground level. We felt that. The Israeli police have had to deal with Palestinian suspects throwing stones at police officers.
The Israeli Foreign Ministry posted this video, it says, shows Palestinian youth preparing and fighting Israeli police on the Temple Mount. Palestinian affairs expert Pinkas Inbari says the trouble is part of a bigger plot.
No, it is not spontaneous. It is coming from, basically it is from Muslim Brotherhood, and behind the Muslim Brotherhood is the Qatar.
Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which has the Nusra group in Syria and Beit al-Maqdas in the Egyptian Sinai.
All of them together, and they want to make Jerusalem the main subject, top of the agenda, in order to regain the Arab masses again.
Inbari says Abbas stopped short of directly paying Palestinians to commit terror, but Hamas is filling in the gap. However, he says the call to violence is not resonating with most Palestinians.
It is far, far below the expectation of Muslim Brotherhood. Jerusalem, by far, generally speaking, is not dragged into the conflict.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
A 90-year-old chef and 2 ministers face criminal charges for feeding hundreds of homeless people in Florida. They're accused of violating a new city ordinance in Fort Lauderdale that prohibits feeding the homeless in public. This is the second time the elderly chef with the big heart has faced off with police in recent days. Wednesday night, police fingerprinted him at the scene and issued a citation. The city ordinance took effect on Friday.
The experts have all said, if you are going to simply feed them outdoors to get them from breakfast to lunch to dinner, all you're doing is enabling that cycle of homelessness. They don't receive the aid and the assistance they need to receive.
It's our right to feed people. It's a First Amendment right, and I believe in the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, and we should be allowed to feed our fellow man.
Chef Arnold Abbott runs a nonprofit group called Love Thy Neighbor. Police also arrested him and ministers Dwayne Sims Sunday as they handed out food to homeless people in a park.
The Christian charity Samaritan's Purse is sending 90 tons of medical supplies to the Ebola hot zone. The supplies include gloves, protective suits, masks, and boots for medical workers. Dr. Kent Brantley joined Franklin Graham on the tarmac in Charlotte, North Carolina, as the much-needed supplies were loaded onto a 747 cargo jet. Brantley recovered from the deadly virus while serving as a missionary in Liberia. He says he's worried that other medical workers might not volunteer to help victims because of the threat of being quarantined when they return to the U.S. He also made a plea for more U.S. aid to West African countries fighting the disease.
If the government could set up an air bridge to transport planes, cargo loads like this on a regular basis, I think that would play a key role in helping boost up and sustain the response in West Africa.
Brantley has also made public appearances before Congress about the Ebola epidemic.
This weekend marks 1 year since a powerful super typhoon hit the Philippines, killing thousands. Our George Thomas visited the scene right after the storm hit and has returned for a look at rebuilding efforts 12 months later.
Yeah.
Is this where you were born?
Yeah.
Charlie Cedeno was born in Tacloban City. The neighborhood he grew up in sits just a few hundred feet from the Philippine coast. Today, the unimaginable task of rebuilding a mess that looks like this. I was here days after Typhoon Haiyan slammed into Cedeno's coastal neighborhood. This footage shot on a small drone shows the devastation. 8,000 people died on November 8, 2013. Tacloban was hardest hit, with 30,000 homes destroyed. Today there are many people who are still living in tents.
Yes, that's right, and many haven't left because they don't have a house to live in.
Michael Saoy is among the 15,000 still living in tents or makeshift homes. In a year, the government here has managed to build only 50 new homes.
It's still very hard and little has changed. I'm looking for ways I can overcome my situation, but the government is moving too slow.
Show us where your room is. Show us where... Cedeno is one of the fortunate to have a new home. CBN Disaster Relief built him and 1,500 other families transitional homes. And when the typhoon destroyed the company where he worked, CBN Disaster Relief hired him.
I'm so happy because they gave us a house and they gave me a job. I'm proud to be part of an organization that really helps people.
There were about 16,000 businesses operating here in Tacloban prior to Typhoon Haiyan. Today, about 7,000 are back in business. One of them is Calizi Cafe, owned and operated by Jerry Ruiz. So, Jerry, what are we eating today?
We're having the classic, the best sellers of Cali.
The restaurant suffered a lot of damage, but 2 weeks after the typhoon hit, he decided to open for business to send a message to his city.
We were trying to set an example. It was trying to get the morale of everybody to get things back to normal.
This Saturday, marking the one-year anniversary, Michael Dika Timbag will join his countrymen in remembering that fateful day. He lost his mother in the typhoon, and today, she, along with 3,000 others, are buried in this mass grave.
It's very painful to know that she's here, but I cannot grieve forever. I have to try to move on in the midst of this storm.
City officials are putting the final names of the deceased on crosses before Saturday.
The difficult part is that you are burying people, and this weighs on our hearts. But it's our duty to create a sacred place that people can come and remember.
George Thomas, CBN News, Tacloban, Philippines.
Coming up, Christianity is threatened in the Middle East. Hear about the Hollywood power couple that's stepping up to help.
45 people are behind bars in Pakistan accused of a brutal mob beating that left a Christian couple dead Tuesday. Pakistani police say a group of Muslims accused the couple of desecrating the Quran. Then hundreds of Muslims joined in the attack. The mob killed the couple and burned their bodies in a brick kiln where the man and his wife worked.
A Hollywood power couple is stepping up to help persecuted Christians in the Middle East. Mark Burnett and Roma Downey produced the blockbuster miniseries The Bible for the History Channel in 2013. Now they've established a fund to help Christian refugees and to preserve Christianity in the region. The Cradle of Christianity Fund seeks to raise $25 million, and the couple donated the first $1 million themselves. Dr. Chris Seipel is president of the Institute for Global Engagement, which will administer the fund. Recently, Christian World News anchor Wendy Griffith spoke with him about it.
Dr. Seipel, the initial goal of the fund is to help Christian refugees. Tell us, what are their needs?
Imagine if you're a family of 4 and the husband is taken outside and you're asked, you need to convert to Islam. If you don't, we'll kill your husband, we'll sell you and your 13-year-old daughter into slavery, into sex trafficking, and we'll send your boy to a madrasa. Imagine if your children are placed before you and they are asked to convert, or your parents will be beheaded. And there are several 100,000 of you in your community who are just trying to survive. This is the situation that motivated Mark and Roma to get involved. They came to us and said, can we partner? Obviously, we are focused on the plight of Christians because it is so overwhelming, and we need to do so quickly because winter is coming.
Well, Chris, who are you working with on the ground to help the refugees?
We were invited by the King of Jordan, a Muslim, a descendant of Prophet Muhammad, and he invited us to meet the leaders of the ancient churches, those churches that have been there since the first century, many in the East evangelized by St. Thomas. And he asked us to work with them. So they're our first and primary partner, especially for the first $25 million. We've got to get stuff to them, jackets, kerosene heaters, blankets, winterized tents called caravans to get them through the winter.
Dr. Seipel, it's interesting. We haven't heard much from Jordan with the rise of ISIS in the last few months. Why is King Abdullah so concerned right now for these persecuted Christians?
King Abdullah is a very interesting man who should command and does command great respect. He is a Muslim. He is 43 generations ago. The Prophet Muhammad, according to them, is one of his ancestors. He's a direct descendant. So when he says something, it means something in the Muslim majority world. And he has said repeatedly, most recently at the UN in September, that Christians represent in the past, the present, and future an integral part of Middle Eastern identity that is essential to the well-being of society and to the stability of the region. For us as Christians, this is where it all began. And this is where it'll end, depending on what your theological persuasions. But we know end times will come and be a part of this too. And Christians are a part of that story.
How will the fund help preserve Christianity in the region?
Well, it's going to go to serve Christians and other faiths, to be sure, but serve Christians and give them a reason to stay. But they need money to do that. The fund enables them to do so.
All right. We appreciate your time, Dr. Chris Seifel. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Up next, he is a marked man hated by millions for calling Islam a dangerous, violent religion. Our astonishing exclusive interview with Dutch politician Geert Wilders when we come back.
Islamic State fighters tortured and abused Kurdish children after taking them prisoner earlier this year in the important battleground town of Kobani. They reportedly beat them with hoses and electric cables. Human Rights Watch based that conclusion on interviews with several of the boys. ISIS captured 150 back in May while the boys were returning home after taking exams. They ranged from 14 to 16 years old. Around 50 of them escaped early on. The rest were later released. They said some of the worst abuse was directed toward family members of the Kurdish militia who are fighting against ISIS.
Geert Wilders knows he might be murdered at any moment, but this brave Dutchman says he would rather die than not speak the truth. For the past 10 years, he's lived under constant police protection, all because he's standing up to radical Islam. Dil Hurd brings us his courageous story in this CBN News exclusive.
He is one of the most controversial figures in the world, hated by millions, marked for death. He is Dutch Parliament member Geert Wilders. Wilders believes the religion of Islam is violent and dangerous, and because he has said so publicly and persistently, he has given up a normal life. It was 10 years ago this month that Wilders began living under police protection. It began after the murder of Theo van Gogh, who made a film attacking Islam. Dutch police believed Wilders might be the next victim and showed up at his door.
And they were wearing machine guns and bulletproof vests. And I said, hey, what is happening? And he said, well, we don't know what is happening, but you have to leave now in 3 minutes. So I could just take some shirts and went away, and we didn't know where we went, where we would go. The police didn't even know. We changed cars and we ended up in an army barrack. And since then, 10 years ago, I have not been home. It's not only the threats, but it's the fact that you lose your freedom and your privacy. My wife and I lived for a few months in a prison cell in Zeist, where the Lockerbie suspects used to be imprisoned. And nowadays, we have safe houses. I live in a safe house from the state.
Do you ever wonder if you made a mistake? Has this been worth it?
Well, I'm sure I did make no mistake. I make mistakes every day. I'm just human, so I'm full of mistakes. But to speak the truth about Islam, as I see it, and as the reality is not a mistake. I wish many people did it. I understand why few people do it, because the price is very high. Besides the death threats that you get from average people, from Islamic descent, from organizations like Al-Qaeda or the Taliban, you also, a lot of people label you as a bigot or a racist or an extremist. They try to hurt you in any possible way. You are sued, like I have been and will be again, by a criminal court or by another court. They will sue you, they will threaten you, they will label you. So I understand it's not very attractive to speak out against the dark forces of Islam, to be proud of our own values and identity that I believe are based on Christianity and Judaism and humanism, not about Islam. And you pay a very high price. So I understand that people don't do it, but people should do it. And what is happening with the Islamic State nowadays in the last few months has opened the eyes of so many people. So I hope it will change.
You can't think of doing anything else. You never wished you had done something else to have a normal life.
I wish I had a normal life, yes. I would be lying to you if I would say that that is my most important wish, to lead a normal life. But even more important than that is to fight Islam, to fight for our freedom, the freedom of our society, to be proud on who we are. And I really strongly believe that Islam is dangerous, Islam is violent, Islam wants to dominate, not assimilate in our societies. And our countries, our free societies will change, and Christians, Jews, apostates, we will be the first one to pay a price if Islam will get its way in our free society. So we have to stand up and fight against it, and I would rather die than not be able to speak freely.
Speaking of dying, some don't believe you'll die a natural death, that sooner or later terrorists will get to you, and they're planning to kill you at some point in the future.
Yes. Yes. You know, it's better not to think about that every day, about the threats and what could happen to me or my family. It would be impossible to live by. So I don't, but you are right. It can happen. It can happen.
Are you willing to spend the rest of your life in police protection?
If it has to be like that, then I will have no choice. It's better to have police protection than to be dead.
Finally today, a little happy health news.
Eating walnuts could help keep your brain healthy as you get older, and that's because they may help prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. Walnuts contain healthy ingredients like omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants that are good for your brain. Those are the findings from a study on mice published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Research. The researchers also found, in addition to having a better memory, the mice had better learning and motor skills. The mice ate the equivalent of around an ounce of walnuts a day.
Bring on the walnuts.
Adding that to the diet for sure.
Definitely. Well, that's it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
We want to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you join us again right here next time. It's Thursday. Make it a thankful one.